Hey guys, it's Bill the Universe, and I normally never do like a video like this. Usually I do a voiceover with like a picture, but I don't know, let's do something different. So I was actually gonna do a video on the three different Spider-Man. I was gonna do Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland, and I was gonna look at their picture, at their birth charts, and kind of do some comparisons, look at the similarities, stuff like that. And the only thing that really stood out was a um planet was Anuradha, and Anuradha is a star within Scorpio. So while I'm taking advantage of this, so Scorpio kind of looks like this. Da, 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 da. Scorpio looks a little bit like that, right? The constellation. So Anuradha is like right here. So it's like the heart of Scorpio. And this particular section of Scorpio, while the Rashi of it is Mars, the actual star of Anuradha, and I'll spell it out, Anuradha, the actual star of Anuradha is ruled by Saturn. So that was one thing that I noticed, is that Scorpio is involved in all of these charts. Andrew Garfield, is his Jupiter is in Anuradha. Tobey Maguire, his Rahu is in Anuradha. And Tom Holland, his moon is in Anuradha. And in Vedic astrology, we don't just go by the signs like the Scorpio, Aquarius, whatever. We go by the actual stars. So this particular star is called Anuradha, and it's actually a very friendly part of Scorpio. So it does have the Scorpio characteristics, which is very intense, a fighter, but it's also got Saturn elements too, which is a lot of friendliness. It's a humanitarian. It thinks about the greater good more than kind of like relationships and a lot of like kind of petty stuff like that. And then I was thinking, should I do a video about Honorad, about just the three Spider-Man, or should I do about all the Avengers? Because I remember like a year ago, I did actually the charts. I looked at the charts of all the Avengers, and the resounding like planet or star that was they had in common was Anuradha. So Scarlett Johansson has her ascendant, Mercury, South Node, and Sun in Anuradha. Chris Evans is an Anuradha ascendant. Mark Ruffalo is an Anuradha Sun and ascendant. Chris Hemsworth is an Anuradha Jupiter. Jeremy, I think Renner is an Anuradha Jupiter. Paul Rudd has his moon in Anuradha. Chadwick Boseman has his Sun, Mars, and Venus, or had his Sun, Mars, and Venus in Anuradha. Tilda Swinton has her Mercury and Jupiter in Anuradha. And Tom Holland, oh, I just said that. He has his moon in Anuradha. Dude, that is, and just to remind you again, Tobey Maguire has his Rahu, his North Node in Anuradha, and Andrew Garfield has his Jupiter in Anuradha. So there seems to be a real demand for Saturn when it comes to the Avengers, particularly Anuradha. Now, here are my theories why. First of all, Scorpio itself is a very sexy planet. It's a very sexual planet. Honestly, I'm not playing a constellation. It's honestly an energy that you want to have sex with. Marlon Brando was an Anuradha ascendant. Brad Pitt is an Anuradha ascendant. I'm actually an Anuradha ascendant myself. That's not proving my point though. But anyway, that's just off the top of my head. Oh, what's her name? Christina Applegate is an Anuradha Sun. What's her name? Katherine Heigl is an Anuradha Sun. Like, there's so many sexy people, like super sexy people that are Anuradha, and so the other thing is Scorpio is a fighter. And it's not just fighting, because yes, it's a fighter, But see, Aries is a fighter too. Aries is also Mars, but Aries is very young. Aries is a very pioneering star. Aries is honestly, don't be mad at me, but Aries is a very selfish star. That's why they're so successful. Because, they think about themselves a lot. So, but Saturn rules this particular section of Scorpio called Anurata. Saturn is very regulated, as you know. Saturn is very slow moving. Saturn, in Hindi, Saturn is called Shani, and Shani means slow. So that means that these people are slow. These people have a lot of fight in them, but these people are slow to get anger. They are slow to start a fight. They don't want to start a fight, but they will fight if they have to. And the other thing about Saturn is, because Saturn, remember, Saturn rules Aquarius. And so Saturn rules, and so the 11th house is the house of Aquarius. And when you have planets in the 11th house of Aquarius, this is a lot of emphasis on community, and it's a lot of emphasis on society. So for example, Saturn does not rule my moon, but my moon is natally in the 11th house of Aquarius. And I could watch like society videos or social experiment videos all day long. I love like the Vice channel. I love stuff like that. I love anything to do with society. Social studies was always my favorite class in growing up, and I actually spent a long time contemplating going to law school, and really just to be a public defender, not really for anything glamorous, just to really just help the common man. So Saturn has a real soft spot for humanity and society in general. And that's exactly what the Avengers is. That's what the Avengers does. They are fighters who fight for society, who fight for humanity. So that's so Anuradha is the perfect mix of Mars, someone who's gonna fight, and Saturn, someone who cares about society. So that's what guys. Hey, sorry, my two cats. Um, so that's what Anuradha is, a perfect mix of Saturn and Scorpio. Now, what I also noticed is that Saturn in general is prominent in these people's charts. So what I saw here is I also noticed the another prominent chart was Mercury. But Saturn wise, Mark Ruffalo, his sun is in Pushya. That's a star. And see, the Saturn rule stars are in the water signs. So Anuradha is in Scorpio. Mark Ruffalo is a Pushya sun. That's a star in Cancer. Tom Holland's sun is in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Benedict Cumberbatch is a Pushya sun, which is Saturn. Which is Cancer, conjunct Saturn. Tilda Swinton also has her moon conjunct Saturn, which is pretty crazy placement for the moon because her moon is already in Anuradha. So her Saturn already, it rules over her moon and is conjunct Saturn, which I think is pretty interesting. And then Chris Evans, his Ketu is in Pushya, which is in Cancer. So that is just so much. And the other thing is, all these Saturn ruled stars, or what we call nakshatras, they are all residing in the water signs. And what is water? Water is emotion. Water is compassion. So when you have, so that's the other thing you're mixing Saturn with all this water. And like I said, water is a lot of compassion, a lot of emotion. So you're mixing a lot of compassion with the planet of society. So it's the people who have a lot of fight in them because it's Mars, like it's Scorpio, and they have a lot of compassion and emotion, which is water, which is Scorpio, for what? Society, which is Saturn. So I think that is just so interesting. It's and the science, the work is done. Like I've taken a look at all these people's charts, and this is by far the most common one. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of Mercury, but There in Jyotish, there are three Mercury ruled stars. So this is a mixture of three different stars. But Anuradha is one specific star. So you see how Anuradha is the resounding champ. And just for your knowledge, the most prominent star was Anuradha. So that also means that the most prominent sign was Scorpio. And then the most prominent planets were Saturn and Mercury. The Revati is a star in Pisces, and but it's also a star that is ruled by Mercury, so that makes sense. And then Swati is actually ruled by Rahu, um, which I thought was interesting too. Rahu, Tobin Maguire's sun is in Rahu, so I see that Rahu and Rahu kind of gets an honorable mention too. But yeah, Saturn is the resounding champ when it comes to these superheroes. The other thing I wanted to say before I go is I think it's interesting that I was looking up Andrew Tate, and if you know him, if you know a bit about him, Andrew Tate was started out as a fighter, right? So that's what Saturn is, because Saturn, Scorpio might be a fighter, but it's not a selfish, off the rails, unhinged fighting. It's actually because Saturn is there. It's a very regulated, controlled fighting, which is very UFC, martial arts, stuff like that. It's a very controlled, disciplined fighting. And Andrew Tate, that's what he was. He was in the martial arts, and his son is also in Anuradha. So I think that is just so interesting. There obviously is Anuradha with the fight of Scorpio, but the regulation and the discipline of Saturn. There obviously seems to be a real talent for controlled violence, stuff like that, that is associated with Anuradha. So I think that is just very, very interesting. All right, guys. I think that's enough. I hope I impressed you with my nerdiness. All right, guys. Love you. Bye.